Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everybody joining us today. Thank you so much for attending today's session where we are joined by our friends at Oxygen Technical Services. We're going to be talking about some ransomware case studies, so it's a really exciting, cool presentation today. My name is Mary Owen, and I'm going to be helping out our hosts today. We've got Christoph Bertrand, who is the VP of Product Marketing here at Arcserve. We have Jeremy Simcoe, who is Director of Technical Operations for Oxygen Technical Services, and Doug Gauthier, who is the Solutions Architect also with Oxygen. Today, we want to hear your questions for sure, so please don't be shy. Send those to us, as you have them, using the question section of your interface, and we will answer as many of them as possible at the end of the event. Today's session is also being recorded, so I will be sending out an email to everybody that registered about an hour after this session ends, and that will have a link to a recording so you can watch it again or share it. So with all that out of the way, take it away, Christoph.
Thank you very much, Mary. Hello, everybody, and thank you very much for joining us today. And special thanks to Jeremy and Doug for joining this webcast. Let me tell you a little bit about Arcserve before we go to Oxygen Technical Services. First of all, we are an independent company. You may have known us from another owner, which was a larger company, but we've become independent since 2014, August 1st, 2014. We've been doing really, really well with our solution called Arcserve Unified Data Protection. Net new architecture designed with simplicity in mind, but with enterprise class features, lots of technology to optimize data protection and disaster recovery. It turns out this great investments have paid off in the context of protecting a number of our customers from ransomware attacks and really helping them recover from those. So we're not a security company. We do not do virus detection or threat mitigation or prevention, but what we do is really disaster recovery and recovery of systems on-premise or in the cloud. We have many options, or with the help of our partners who manage environments for our customers, which is where we have our friends from Oxygen on this call today. We have won many awards, as you can see. We have great technology for virtual environments, as well as support for physical environments. We have acquired many customers in only 2.5 years of our UDP product being in market. And we work with many partners around the world, and we certainly have a very good view of what's going on globally, since we're a global company with headquarters in every geo. So with this in a way, so out of the way, I would like to turn it over to Jeremy to tell us a little bit about Oxygen Technical Services. And Jeremy, let me know when you want me to switch the slides.
Sounds great, and thanks for having us, Christoph. We're excited to be here for this. So a little bit about Oxygen Technical Services. We're a managed services provider. We support over 5,000 users across North America, and we've got offices located in Winnipeg, Manitoba, and Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, Canada. We work in all vertical markets for small and medium-sized businesses all the way up to enterprise clients, where we do some line of business augmentation in terms of what we can offer in gaps of their profession. We provide IT success formula that creates a customized solution for each of our clients that build off our 4 key pillars, which include mobility, cloud, security, and data systems management. We're a growing company with skills and experience and partnerships that allow us to provide all facets of technology to our customers. Go ahead and hit the next slide. Christoph, next slide, please.
Yeah, I just did that. Maybe you have a question.
So why Arcserve for us? So Doug here was our solution architect for getting this practice on board. We needed to find something that was comprehensive in the way that we supported our clients from a data protection standpoint. So image-based backups for virtual servers and even physical servers for quick recovery in times of disaster. We needed something to get their data off sites, and the UDP replication portion of this with compression, deduplication, and kind of the way that everything gets picked up for replication really met our needs for providing quick off-site replication, just because it's the deltas. We evaluated a number of products, and because of the dissimilar hardware restoration, physical to virtual, virtual to virtual, virtual to physical, all that other great stuff with the replication off-site, Arcserve really stood out to us in terms of the whole complete package. The savings that we're seeing on storage and capacities really, it makes this a very cost-effective, feasible kind of platform for any of our small to medium businesses as well to get behind, not just enterprise class. And they benefit from the same types of technologies that the enterprise can because of this. And as we'll discuss, there's been great successes in recovery of our clients for this reason. Next slide.
Perfect. Well, let me cover UDP very quickly, and thank you for this introduction, and thank you for the great feedback on our solution. So, okay, lots of arrows, lots of boxes. Let me get everybody's attention here on the top right, primary site, top right quadrant. What we are is a solution that works as a software solution. We also have an appliance, a series of appliances you can use. So essentially, we protect physical environments, virtual environments. We can go to tape. And at the heart of our architecture is this green server you can see that's called the Recovery Point Server, RPS. And it's important to understand this part as we look at the ransomware component, because what we do is we literally protect your systems, including, as Doug indicated, the whole stack, the operating system, the data, everything, the application, so we can recover a system from bare metal, hence the expression. But we protect the environment in a way that's very granular and allows you to have many recovery points, therefore influencing your ability to recover at a certain point in time. So that RPO capability is built in. More importantly, we have two other very cool features in UDP that are managed by the Recovery Point Server. We have global source-side deduplication. And you heard about the savings. We're not making those up. This is a real-life example of one of our partners using the product for their customers. We typically get in the 80% range, sometimes up to 90% range deduplication compared to the backup data. So we do this at the source, meaning that we don't have to send a lot of data across the wire to our server to then deduplicate it. It gets deduplicated at the source. And it's a very light process that doesn't slow anything down, and it allows us to do the heavy lifting on our server. The benefit is this: less storage, obviously, faster backups, and the ability to also replicate these recovery points in the data store to other locations, which is what I'm showing here. If you go to the top left quadrant, you'll see that I'm showing an example where maybe there's a remote office or a set of remote offices, maybe in other provinces or states, where you have appliances or small servers, and you're backing up those environments on UDP, and you can share not only the deduplication across the servers, but also, by definition, get disaster recovery, because now I have replicated my data from one site to the other. It's just an example. There are many permutations. As you can see at the bottom right, you could be going to a partner site, a disaster recovery site, a managed service provider, and where you can get additional services provided to you. In some cases, we see also the creation of tape backups in those environments. We support public cloud as well, so it's another element of that's interesting to know. Again, we really support a hybrid modern infrastructure with UDP. Now, all of this is very important to understand, because as we look at the issues associated with ransomware, understanding at a high level that you have those point-in-time copies, and those can be easily shipped to other safe locations as well as easily recovered, makes a very big difference in your ability to fend off the attacks. So ransomware, without going into a lot of complex explanations, essentially, as the name indicates, it's essentially a criminal operation. Let's not forget that. It's not just a virus or some logical corruption that happens or some user error. This is a deliberate attempt to extort money out of a business, typically organization, by blocking access to that data or their systems, hence affecting the operational dimension of the business and costing the business a lot of money, unless, of course, they pay the ransom. It takes multiple forms and shapes. They evolve all the time. These are very savvy criminals who will not hesitate to trick end users into opening that attachment that then spreads everywhere, or just attacking you directly and controlling your administrative rights, for example, or just gaining control of your environment and to start shutting down services and corrupting data. So whether you're dealing with a crypto virus or crypto worm or a crypto Trojan, there are many other names and categories of ransomware attacks. The net result is always the same: a denial of access to your data or your applications. In some cases, data loss. In addition, typically most of the time you get your data back if you pay the ransom, but in a lot of circumstances you do not. So even paying the ransom does not necessarily guarantee a recovery of data. So in terms of service level agreements and backup, this is where we come in, and this is where you're going to hear firsthand how Oxygen has fixed the issue for customers. You have really a couple of things that happen with ransomware. Number one is the recovery point objective. When is the last time you had a backup of those systems that were affected? So typically ransomware spreads very quickly, especially if you have shared environment like a NAS device or a bunch of NAS devices. It will spread to all those files. So how do you recover that, right? How do you recover that application, that email server quickly? Quickly, number one, but more importantly, at what point in time? When was the last backup? So understanding the currency of your backup is the recovery point objective, and that's where people realize very quickly when they've been hit by ransomware that having a recent backup is very important. Now, not every business needs a backup from 15 minutes ago, and you'll see through examples that there are different varying degrees of tolerance to that. But fundamentally, unless you have a very current backup, your ability to recover your data is going to be certainly problematic. The other dimension is the time it takes to recover. So that's the recovery time objective. So in that, there are a couple of factors. Number one is, how are you providing for your backups? If you're working with Oxygen, for example, we give them a call and say, hey, look, I've got a problem, or maybe they'll detect that problem for you and start the process of recovery. But more importantly is, how long does it take you to get back on your feet? You have to clean up the infection first, stop it from spreading further, and you also have to then actually recover the data. And of course, there's probably a pecking order in how you recover your data. You want to recover more critical systems first. So all of this requires thorough planning, a good understanding of your business requirements, translated into IT requirements, and this is where we work with our partners in the field who really help our customers figure that out and also manage those backups and those recoveries, as is the case here, and as you're going to hear in a minute. So with this in mind, I would like to now turn it back to Jeremy and Doug to cover 3 examples that will give you a lot of details on what happened, what they did, and of course, please go ahead and ask your questions. We'll answer them at the end of the session. So back to you, Jeremy.
Thanks very much. I'll let Doug answer some of these, explain some of these ransomware examples that we've got here.
All right, so in the first case here, this was one of our medical clients that deals with senior citizens. and a mental health agency. They ended up, I believe it was in the evening or over the evening, someone opened up an email file which started encrypting their files. We were notified by 8:30 in the morning. Our teams went out and started investigating, trying to obviously first locate the source of the infection, because until we find the source, remediation is not going to work very well. Once we found the source, we took it off the network, immediately began a file level restore from the Arcserve backups, confirmed that all of the data was back up and running, took the system back to remediate, clean up the virus, brought it back on the network, and within just a few hours, they were back up and functional outside of that one DC. In this case, literally, if without this, they would have lost pretty much all of their data. A couple locations would have been down. I think that's really covers this one case. It was fairly straightforward. I think we can just move over to the next slide here. Our next case here was very similar. It was a different type of a client. It's more of a service provider that deals with mechanical services. Again, it was another email that came in, clicked on the link to go to the location, encrypted the user's PC, and started propagating across the network. Again, once we located which PC it was, we were able to take it off the network. Thankfully, it didn't get to any service or any files in this case that affected any major servers. So we just restored all their network shares, and they were able to come back online within a few hours.
In this particular case as well, it was a matter of recovery point objectives. The recovery or the backup was taken in the middle of the night. The email attachment was clicked on mid-morning, so there had been a little bit of work that had been done between then. So unfortunately, there was a little bit of data loss, but nothing that couldn't have been recreated from a couple of hours in the morning. Next slide.
So this case was actually a little bit more to the extreme. This was a variant of a ransomware that not only encrypted the user's data, it also encrypted the backup data store. It pretty much made their servers, had their servers not even be able to come online. This particular client also deals with offsite replication, thankfully, because we were able to go down to our data center, get a copy of all their backup data, bring it back on site, and restore all their servers. Again, after finding that which server it was that was infected. In this case, it wasn't just a file level. We actually needed to do a full bare metal restore of all of their entire environment. Obviously, in that case, it's not as fast to restore, but we were able to get them back up and running within 48 hours. I don't believe there was any data loss whatsoever.
Correct. You want to go to the next slide, and we'll continue on. Perfect. So recommendations that we can provide, obviously, first and foremost, backup. We say backup because, you know, everybody, you guys being the IT representative for your own businesses, for people you might support, this is the thing that we have direct control over. This is the stuff that we can do to you know, cover our butts, so to speak, and make sure that we're doing as much as possible to make sure our businesses and our customers are protected. Education is another way. It's as noted, it's the biggest way to mitigate a zero-day attack is educating staff and everyone on what to look for phishing schemes with email and that sort of stuff, proper browsing etiquette and what have you. Next-gen firewalls, especially with sandboxing capabilities and application awareness. These are the things that help us keep these risks and these malicious applications even from getting in the front door as best as possible. Comprehensive security, standard operating procedures and internal policies, antivirus, anti-malware, anti-spam, hardening of these policies as well. They'll help add value to the first 3 points that we just spoke about. And managing our systems with proactive patch management. Most important thing, make sure your desktops, your servers, all patched to the most recent. Firmware updates are to the most current version they can be on switches, firewalls, printers, going forward, everything like that. And finally, planning. With mobile devices becoming more prevalent every day in everybody's use, it's not long before they start becoming the focus of these attacks as well. Next slide.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much for all of these information and these recommendations. What I'd like to do is maybe leave us to the on the recommendation side here and ask our audience if they have any questions to go ahead and just use the questions tab. It's very easy to just ask a question and we'll try to answer them. And there's one comment or one question that came up that I'd like to address here. It's regarding, and that's actually it's one of your examples as well, one of your examples. There's always a risk as you get infected by any sort of malware or ransomware that you could, that the backup server itself could be exposed, and therefore making your backup data unavailable. Now, some say that it depends on the operating system. Certain operating systems are more exposed to that than others. I think that's not necessarily true. Actually, recently we've seen quite a bit of attacks on Linux environments. So just want to warn everybody that operating system is not the issue. The real issue is to really isolate your backup environment, your backup server, and protect the protector in a way. So isolate it. There are a number of best practices that we do recommend so that the backup server itself will not be affected. Also, a lot of discipline on who has access to it, and one of the best practices is also not to necessarily put some of the backup data on the share because those can easily get infected. So there are again a number of steps, and I don't know, maybe Doug and Jeremy will have some recommendations as well. Now the point also is that in UDP and Arcserve technology in general, you have multiple fail-safe options. First of all, you can take a regular copy of your backup server itself, which is highly recommended. We have a capability called Jumpstart, which literally allows you to copy the store on a portable device that you can then keep offline. By the way, the best protection against ransomware and all those attacks is to have offline copies or copies that are not accessible. Of course, if you replicate the backup data to a secondary site, and you manage that appropriately with the security and the best recommendations we have, best practices, you will be able to recover from that secondary site as well. So there are a number of possibilities here, and unfortunately, sometimes if you don't have those in place, you have a chance, you have a risk. Every vendor is exposed just the same. Let me see what other questions we have. I know we're getting quite a few, so if you bear with me. Okay, so there's a very good question here, which is actually, I think, perfect question. So how do you know if you're not restoring the virus in the case where that virus was hibernating for some time before activating? I'll give this one to you, Doug. You're probably the best person to answer this one.
So from our
history of going through all the ransomware that's been coming through the last few years, we've usually found that you can usually identify a time frame as to when the ransomware was infected by the date that the files have been changed. That will at least give you an idea as to where to start looking. And what I've usually done is I go into the backup, or I go into the date that I want to try to restore from, and I look at the files and I'm looking for just to make sure that those encryption files aren't there. If they're not present in that location, then your files are going to be good, and you're going to be able to restore from that date. Obviously, you want to make sure that your retention period is sufficient to cover more than just a single night or couple of nights. Because if you get infected on a Friday night at the end of the day and you're only backing up every night, you're probably going to be in trouble if you don't catch it till Monday morning. But that's usually how I do it. The encryption files will come in there with the date that they were created, and that's a good indicator of where you can start from.
Perfect. Question on what do you mean by sandboxing capabilities with on point 3, the next generation firewall?
A lot of the newer next generation firewalls now come with capabilities where online services that you can subscribe to will intercept incoming files and sites and such, and hold them in a standby state before delivering them to the end user within the organization to ensure that the file is okay and not having any sort of malicious application in it. If it does match anything that's already been caught, then it'll just discard those packets. And if we find something malicious, then it adds it to the database and starts making it available, those 0-day attacks available to other people on the service.
Perfect, thank you. A question regarding the cases that you just presented, and essentially the question is whether the business continuity processes were based solely on data restoration, or were there some standby systems ready to go? So I'll turn this one again to you, and then I'll follow up with that virtual or that standby question. So these were essentially recoveries, not activation of a standby system.
Correct. Correct. Yeah, it was in the first two cases, it was restoring file level data. The actual server was functional and accessible. It's just they didn't have access to their data, so we just recovered their data. In the last case, their entire local environment was inaccessible, as well as their data store being inaccessible, so we weren't able to bring up any sort of standby or instant recovery mode that we could have utilized had their local data store been accessible to us.
Okay, perfect, thank you. And by the way, so yeah, talking about standby or instant virtual machine or virtual standby, with UDP you have those capabilities built in. So those of you who are looking at the solution, there is a way that you could actually have ready to go at any point a machine that has the latest recovery point. So from that, you can literally recover anything that's in that recovery point and stand that up and even run from it. So there are many options there with standby type of capabilities within UDP. So obviously in these cases, this was more of a recovery effort, but again, I think there are all sorts of variations around the same depending on what's going on in the environment. There's a question or comment regarding Arcserve being complementary to an antivirus. Yes, exactly. We're essentially the backup and disaster recovery solution. So antivirus, threat detection type of solutions come in first, firewalls, etc. So they're a separate type of technology, but they work certainly hand in hand. And if anything goes through, which is unfortunately, there's always that chance, and we've seen based on statistics that you're not going to catch everything, unfortunately. well, then the next question is, how do you recover once you've been infected? And this is where we come in with the UDP solution. There was a question that I'm not sure, I think this is a different one for you, Doug. How do iron port devices factor into filtering and detecting ransomware?
Well, same thing where iron port becomes the that first layer of defense at the gateway with the antivirus products and the next gen firewalls and such. Arcserve backs that up by being able to mitigate against any of the zero-day attacks with restoration of data.
Perfect. Great. I think that's pretty much what we have time for. I see a few more questions coming in. Let's see if we can take a couple. Let me take this one. Is there antivirus software you recommend when you find out the ransomware in the file? I think, I'm not going to name vendors. There are a number of solutions there, and I think for those type of conversations, I would certainly recommend you have a chat with our friends from Oxygen on recommendations. I would say there are lots of great solutions out there, but it really depends on your environment and, again, your requirements. Let's see. What education should you provide users? That's a great one. I think definitely there are lots of things you can do, and there are companies that actually specialize in providing user education. But I know that you spend quite a bit of time on this as well on your end, Jeremy.
Yeah, we actually partner with an online service called Know Before, KNOW B4. They'll phish your staff, they'll phish your customers, and provide reporting based on the results of these good phishing attacks, social engineering and such. And then they provide feedback to yourselves to let you know how everybody did, and it helps you focus on training, and they provide the training as well for different social engineering attacks.
Perfect. And I know that we know certainly Know Before as well, and certainly they're a great solution or a great part of the overall solution or toolkit you need to put in place as you look at ransomware mitigation. Okay. Somebody is recommending Know Before, so that's great. Thank you, Sam, for the recommendation. One final question before we finish and conclude this webcast is, does ransomware elevate the user privilege, or does it run as an application? I think this is a pretty broad question, but a very good one.
Yeah, it is somewhat of a broad question, and to date, I'll preface with, I can't guarantee this to be the case, but we've not seen any cases of the ransomware actually elevating the user's privileges. That being said, it is nothing but coding, so that may happen at some point. But right now, no. As far as I know, ransomware is not elevating the privileges. So if you have good network security, then you're going to be in a much better situation if you do get hit with ransomware.
Perfect. Thank you. Well, I know that there are many other questions and many individual circumstances that will arise. And one thing I can guarantee you is that to all of our listeners is that things are not going to get better. Actually, I was reading recent reports on the spread of ransomware. It's definitely becoming more and more pervasive. So whatever you're doing to stop it before it hits, and then the mitigation, remediation that we can help you with the Arcserve UDP solution, all of these are steps that will protect your IT and really protect your business. Again, it's really a criminal operation here. They're trying to get money out of you and deny you access to your data and systems, and anything you can do to protect your environment is going to be key. I would like to thank you, Jeremy and Doug, again for your time, for your knowledge, and for your insights. Thank you for being a great partner, and I think a number of our joint or common customers and end users thank you for your help recovering their environment. And of course, I know there'll be questions that may come after this, so we will be certainly happy to follow up with each of you who have questions. If you want to get in touch with us, we have information for you on our website, and we'll certainly be happy to put you in touch with our partner Oxygen. Mary, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, Christophe, Jeremy, and Doug for that great presentation. As I mentioned before, I'll be sending out a recording of this webcast later today, so keep an eye out for that. Of course, if you have additional questions, or maybe if you'd like to set up a personalized demo, if you feel free to reach out to us, feel free to reach out to our friends at Oxygen, and we can hook you up with that. So thanks again, everyone, for joining us today, and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.